Ah, alrighty. Hello, hello, hello. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Hi, it's Tamarah here. Welcome back to my channel. It's so good to speak to you today. I wanted to talk about this issue back when it first came out, and I didn't, and I really want to take that time to do so now. So, funny story, I actually started this video and started it on my iPad, and then my iPad told me it was too full. But that said, I probably recorded 2 or 3 videos on my iPad previously, so I'm not too worried about it, but I think I'm just going to start the video over again, and let's see where we go from here. Alright, so excuse me if I'm looking at my phone. I have a lot of notes saved in my Google Doc, so I'm just going to be relying on that for more of my information. In addition, I will be kind of expounding upon the notes that I've taken as well. So I'm going to sit back and we'll get started. Alright, so according to the internet, Joe Rogan announced on his Instagram on May 19, 2020, that his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, would be moving exclusively to Spotify. So, he specifically said, starting on September 1st, the podcast will be available on Spotify as well as all platforms. Then at the end of the year, it will move exclusively to Spotify, including the video version. So Rogan explained that while clips of the podcast would be available on YouTube, the full version of the show will only be available on Spotify by the end of 2020. Now this is big news. It really is. I know it's old news. It's been 2 months since he announced this, but the reality is by September, so in another 3 weeks, we're going to be seeing that official move towards Spotify. So you realize now that Joe Rogan is going to have to now start downloading all of his content on YouTube. So that's going to be video content and audio content, and moving all of that content over to Spotify. So he's probably already started on that work if he's going to be having all of his podcasts be available on Spotify and on all other platforms, right? So I'm assuming when he says all of the platforms, he's probably thinking of other podcasting platforms that he's going to have this available on. But this is big news. This is huge. Why? Because this could be signaling an exodus from YouTube. YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook have been the largest platforms out there. They have been the big 3 running the game. Instagram had a good run, but I think that Instagram is starting to get a little stagnant in terms of its growth. I believe I read an article that stated that the youth that are coming up after me, because I'm a millennial, I'm a 92 baby, so when you think about the people in like 1996 and beyond, the Gen Z people, they are starting to get way more into Instagram and into other platforms, not even into Instagram. They don't even want to be on Instagram or necessarily Twitter or even Facebook. God forbid Facebook. Facebook is like the app for old people now. Twitter is for, I feel like Twitter could technically be for everybody, but I feel like journalists are on it a lot, public figures are on that a lot, like celebrities, and then I feel like people in their 20s to 40s tend to be on there a lot as well. I don't know the specific numbers right now for the breakdown of demographics per social media platform. I'm kind of just talking off the top of my head here, but I could definitely find some links and put that in the description box below. But in saying all of this, I was just thinking to myself, like, for Joe Rogan to sign an exclusive deal with Spotify, that says a lot. He's taking all of his content, except for he did say that he was going to be having the clips of his podcast. So he said the highlights of his podcast would be going on to, would be remaining on to YouTube, like little highlights from his show. He said that the main full version of the show would only be found on Spotify by the end of 2020. So basically now what he's hoping for is that his millions of followers, the millions of people that follow his channel, will follow him over to Spotify and stream content exclusively from there. I think that Spotify has been doing well as a platform. I've always had a bone to pick with Spotify and Apple Music, because I felt like they were so slow. in the take, because YouTube, they let YouTube dominate the game for so long, and I feel like they could have done so much more with the streaming platform. Like Apple Music had iTunes, and they could have leveraged iTunes, and as well as, yeah, the whole iTunes library. They could have had their own Netflix, they could have had their own Spotify, they could have had all of that from the beginning, back when iTunes was the only thing. And then when Spotify came up, I kept waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for Spotify to move to Canada and to be available in Canada for me to use it. I think it's only been available in Canada for the last year or two. And finally I've been able to use the platform, which is great. I love the fact that I'm able to use the platform now. But I'm also thinking to myself, like, what could have happened if they had made more of a step earlier on when things weren't so solidified? Because right now you have all of these little platforms hopping up. You have Parler, you have Cloud Hub, you have every minute you're hearing about some new social media platform that people are talking about. I think it was one called Mastodon or something like that, that I heard people were talking about, like when I used to watch the FIR podcast network. By the way, FIR, if you're listening to this video, which you're probably not, whatever, I'm gonna throw it out there, please go to Spotify, okay? I'm not on Apple iTunes podcast anymore. Please go to Spotify. I would love to keep getting communications insights from you. But yeah, they used to talk about Mastodon like all the time, every minute, and I still have yet to check out that social media platform. But of all of the little random social media platforms that are building up and that are growing, I'm finding that TikTok will probably have some staying power with the youth. That is, if Trump's new ban on TikTok, or on their parent company, I think it was called ByteDance, if that ban goes through, then that's going to really cripple TikTok. And TikTok's going to have to decide whether or not they want to keep the Chinese ownership and keep their connections with the Chinese government. And I'm not necessarily saying that TikTok is directly owned by the Chinese government, but let's be real. In a communist regime, you don't really have as much leeway as you would in necessarily a capitalist regime, right? So it would just be a lot safer to have our data in a company that's not owned in China, you know? So if the TikTok doesn't move out of China, that app could potentially get strongly weakened because they wouldn't have access to the United States, and if the United States does something, everybody's going to follow. So I realized I just went off on a little bit of a rabbit trail there, but basically what I was saying is that we can see that the market is very fragmented and there's ownership in the market. The older people are being owned by Facebook. We have more of the millennials, and mostly millennials I would say, on Twitter and Instagram, and then you have more of the Gen Z people on TikTok. And now Spotify is coming forward and they're saying, hey, we don't just want to be a second tier or third tier application that people can use. We want to be the top tier. We want to be the top dogs here, you know? And for them to say, okay, we're going to go and poach one of the biggest podcasters in the YouTube space, and not only pitch them and not only grab them, but say, we don't just want your audio, we want your video too, and we want that all exclusively on our platform. Like, can you imagine like what that is going to do for the YouTube space? I'm just going to open my phone again to kind of go over this again. Yeah, so already according to Variety magazine, they're saying that shares of Spotify shot up more than 5% after the news broke, you know, and that it had its highest closing price since October 2018. So this news is already proving to be beneficial for Spotify. I'm curious if this news will be beneficial for Joe Rogan as well. If it is, I'm expecting heavy amounts of traffic to Spotify, heavy amounts of usage of Spotify. Spotify is still a platform that a lot of people use. So I could see him getting a lot of views and a lot of watch time through Spotify. And honestly, this to me could be, sorry, knocked my mic stand there. I think this could be a great opportunity because I'm tired of YouTube being the one and only platform out there that people can use. Because you realize that I studied communications in my master's, and I studied Habermas and his theory of the public sphere, and how, you know, we used to have different enclosed, both open and enclosed spaces where they would have just a free exchange of information. And you realize that we've evolved as a society and as a species where we don't have the public square or coffee houses and different establishments as our public sphere. We now use our social media as a public sphere of sorts, where we start to engage with each other, exchange information, learn from each other, and all of that. And now these platforms have so much power and control that they can control whether or not an influencer or a speaker even gets their voice heard. Like, I think it was back in 2000 and, when was it again? I think it was back in 2019 where people just decided to completely kick Alex Jones off of like pretty much every single platform he was on. Yes, it was 2018 when they removed, it was Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify, and of course Twitter followed suit shortly thereafter. Completely kicked Alex Jones off of their platform. And now you only hear about him when somebody decides to take one of his clips from his website, throw it onto Twitter, or somebody sees him out and about on the road and films him and puts it on Twitter. And it's like, other than that, you don't get to hear his ideas, you don't get to hear his thoughts, you don't get to hear his contributions. And, you know, say what you want about conspiracy theories, but personally, I think that there's a space for certain thoughts. You know, I understand that some of his thoughts were very offensive, and some of his thoughts could definitely provide maybe false information, but I think that giving somebody the opportunity to at least present their ideas, and then other people can come forward and provide rebuttals and corrections, I think that's a better way to move forward with things instead of just completely shutting people down. And so I'm very interested and intrigued to see, you know, how is Spotify going to work? If Spotify decides that they're going to start accepting Joe Rogan and having him present his podcasts on their platform, does that mean that they want to become the new YouTube? Does that mean that they're going to want to have people bringing content onto their platform? Is this going to be an invitation only basis, or is this going to be a platform free like YouTube was? Can you remember back in the day when, at least I'd like to think you're old enough to remember back in the day when YouTube, back in 2006 when I first saw YouTube, I was like, oh, I have to get on this, I have to start making videos, I have to. Begged and begged my parents, and they were like, nope, no YouTube for you. It wasn't until a few years ago where they're like, why don't you start a YouTube channel? I was like, you're the one who told me not to. But anyway, but yeah, you know, like, I just thought it was so interesting back in the day. Like, you could find anything and everything on here. Like, there was some weird stuff on YouTube, but there was also some great and informative stuff on YouTube. And I think that they continue to work with people and partner with different people to create content, to build their algorithm, to create a really good service for not just for the consumer, but for people who were interested in content creation. However, I've been noticing over the years, maybe with what's her name, Susan Wojcicki or whatever, the CEO of YouTube, I've noticed that there's been a distinct shift in the YouTube culture here. Maybe that was partly due to the how many adpocalypses we've had on the YouTube platform, where, you know, it's harder now to monetize your channel. You have to have at least 1,000 subscribers, and you have to have at least 4,000 watch hours, I believe, for a whole year. So speaking of, if you're liking the content and you want to hear more from me, feel free to subscribe. Like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff, you know? I as well plug myself for a minute. But yeah, you know, like, with the recent adpocalypses, people on the platform have had to look at different places where they can maybe make money, look at different places where they can maybe share their voice, share their opinions, share their content. Like, for me right now, I'm trying to figure out a way where I can potentially put my content on different platforms, share information here and there. I want to make sure that YouTube is not just my only bread and butter. I never want to just rely on YouTube for my content to be out there. So I'm definitely looking at what other platforms are there, what are people going on. I know BitChute is starting to get a bit more successful. Dailymotion is there, but I don't love their interface, to be quite honest. BitChute, I like it a little bit better, but I'm definitely looking at other platforms to see what is out there, what can I use, what can I leverage to put myself out there and put my voice out there. And I'm sure that Joe Rogan had a similar experience, knowing that, you know, some of his videos were getting shadow banned. Right now it's August 2020, August 12th, and I'm watching his most recent video around that time with Deborah Sell, and I was hearing reports on Twitter that video was getting basically shadow banned on Twitter. And in the past, Joe Rogan has complained about different videos of his just being shadow banned on Twitter. On YouTube, and you know, he wasn't able to get his voice out there. There are times when, you know, he wants to talk about different clips. He's not able to talk about those clips on YouTube and show another person's YouTube clip, because if you do that, YouTube or the YouTube creator will just completely shut down your video, flag it, get stuff deleted, get stuff demonetized, which is really demoralizing for creators. Now I get that there were definitely some benefits with the Adpocalypse. I mean, we don't have people necessarily doxing others or creating as much slander or drama with other channels as used to be there, but there is a certain level of creative expression and free flow of information that I feel is lacking now in the platform. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I noticed this, that in the past few years, YouTube's slogan is no longer visible on the platform. YouTube's slogan, broadcast yourself, used to be underneath their logo in the top left corner of the website. As soon as you went onto youtube.com and you looked at the top left corner, you saw the YouTube with their logo the way it is, you know, with the U and then the play button and the YouTube, and then underneath it, it said broadcast yourself. That slogan is no longer there. Why? Because I personally believe that YouTube is trying to move away from that image now. They no longer want to be a platform where people can broadcast themselves. They started off that way, and they're still letting people do that for now, but that's not what they want the platform to be in the next few years, which is why I really feel like another platform like Spotify or somebody else, another contender, can rise up and potentially create a service where people can freely exchange ideas again, freely share their content again, because YouTube is not the same as it used to be. And this is just me as a viewer of YouTube and just a recent creator. I haven't been behind the scenes, behind the curtain, to see all of the changes and all the policies that have been coming from YouTube this whole time, but I've at least had the chance to view the changes that have happened. People who used to talk about certain topics rather openly no longer will talk about them, because they know that if they mention that topic, their channel's getting demonetized, their videos are getting flagged, they're getting shadow banned on YouTube. Like, there's some people now, like, I'm subscribed to them because I know that if I am not subscribed, I am not going to see them show up in the search. Like, it's hard for me to even find them, you know? And all of this, to me, comes together with Joe Rogan. Like, I wonder, like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? Was it all of the censorship that he had to go through? Like, even as looking up YouTube censorship, I found a spreadsheet, like a Google Doc, that goes through all of the words, all the keywords on YouTube that you're not allowed to say, because if you say them, you could potentially get demonetized, or your video could potentially get removed from the platform. And it's scary to think about the fact that YouTube is taking such a hard line at this, but I get it, that advertisers are pulling out, and they're not coming back to the platform, and they want the platform to get more family friendly and more advertiser friendly in order for them to continue to thrive as an organization. So I get it, I hear it, I don't like it, but, you know, what can you do, right? It's not our platform, and the reality is we're in rented space, and the more we realize it, the better. So I bought an external drive, and I'm planning to just log all of my videos in that external drive, just in case. I want to have a running spreadsheet of what number episode it was, what was the name of the video, what were all the tags of the video, what's the thumbnail of the video, and just have all of that information logged and ready, because the day and day that YouTube comes knocking on my channel and tells me, hey girl, you're causing us too many problems, you need to just get yeeted off this platform, I don't want to be that creator that cries on social media and says, all of my years of work are gone. And that's no shade to anybody who has been through that. It's hard, it's heartbreaking, I know, and I feel for you. But I'm just saying that in seeing your journey, I want to make sure that I don't face the exact same thing. I want to make sure that I learn from your mistakes. So in doing this YouTube journey and going forward with this YouTube journey, I want to make sure I have backups of all my videos. I am backing up all my content, and that way I can make sure that I'm prepared, you know? So when YouTube says, we don't want you here anymore, we're gone. And, you know, so I thought it was really interesting, and there's a really interesting story, and I'm curious to see if there's going to be another platform that rises up and says, hey, I also want to be a contender in this game. There is space in the YouTube or video content sphere, because YouTube is shifting. It's shifting, and those of us who were late on the draw might not be able to benefit as much from YouTube as the original creators. The original creators, YouTube paid them so much money. YouTube gave them so many benefits. There's people who have gone on to create empires, makeup empires. They've gone to create different businesses. And I'm not shading any of these people. I know these people grinded. They worked hard. They were the OG YouTubers from back in the day. So I have no shade towards them. And I know that a lot of these people put out videos every single day of their lives, or at least every single week, to make sure that they have content ready for all of us to enjoy. So kudos to them. They've done a lot, and they put a lot of work into this platform, and they worked and tried to make money on this platform back when money on this platform wasn't guaranteed. You know, I had wanted to be one of the originals, but you know, I didn't get to have that chance. But you better believe the next platform that comes out and wants to be a YouTube competitor, I'm hopping on, and I want to be part of this. I want to see where I can go with it. So I'm happy for Joe Rogan. I was surprised. I'm not gonna lie to you. When I first saw this whole situation go down, I thought to myself, I was like, oh, I thought Pewds would have been the first one to leave. I didn't think Joe Rogan would be the first one to just hightail it out of here. And speaking of Pewds, I would love to kind of highlight his situation a little bit as well, because in 2019, Pewdiepie actually made a deal. He signed an exclusive video game streaming deal with YouTube. So this article was from Insider magazine, and yeah, so he signed a deal, and Felix says, YouTube has been my home for over a decade now, and live streaming on the platform feels like a natural fit as I continue to look for new ways to create content and interact with fans worldwide. And to be honest, when I saw this, I thought to myself, what? I never would have thought that he would have stayed, because I remember back in the day when he had so many controversies back in the day where Disney cut ties with him. I think he was pulled out of the YouTube Red program. And, you know, and also I've always found it interesting how both Joe Rogan and Pewdiepie probably have one of the highest viewerships on YouTube. I would even include people like even Philip DeFranco. Millions of views. Millions. But then you never see them on the Explore page, on the Explore tab in YouTube. Not once. Actually, lie. Probably the only time I've seen Pewds on the Explore page on YouTube is when he's doing his Minecraft series. Like, that will put him on the Explore page. Can't remember the last time I saw Philip DeFranco on the Explore page. I used to watch him rather regularly too. I think he's building his own news network and stuff, and wish him all the best on that. I didn't look him up for this video, but maybe I'll look into a video on him in the future. But yeah, let's look at Pewdiepie for a second. So Pewdiepie has 106 million subscribers. I believe I mentioned with Joe Rogan, I don't know if I mentioned it in this recording or in the recording that kind of conked out on me, but with Joe Rogan, oh no, I think I mentioned it in the first one. With Joe Rogan, I've been a less frequent follower of his. Like, if there's a guest I really want to see, I'll go and watch, but for the most part, I'm not on his podcast like all the time. Like, it has to be somebody I want to see. With Pewdiepie though, like, I always find myself back on PewDiePie's channel. I love his meme reviews. I love Lawai. And somebody recently got him to start reviewing 90 Day Fiancé, and that is like, I live for those reviews. Like, that show just is so wild, and I don't have cable anymore, so I don't get to like watch it, but like, I love the fact that we have YouTubers who will watch the shows for us and review them and give us their commentary, which really makes it a really nice experience. But yeah, you know, of all the frustrations he's had on YouTube, there have been so many times where he has been in different controversies. Some of them, to be honest, he's deserved a lot of controversies he's had, you know, in the past. I think 2017 was quite the year for him, where he had some anti-Semitic jokes, he said the N-word on air, things like that. And, you know, he really, every time he makes a misstep on YouTube or does something that's really bad, he has like slews of articles written about him, lots of campaigns to try and get him taken down off the platform, and he never has been, which says a lot. But, you know, I find that with YouTube and him, it's almost like a weird symbiotic relationship where, like, Pewds has been here since 2009. He is grinded. Was it 2009? I think Joe Rogan was 2009. Let me just confirm with Pewdiepie here, because I took notes. No, sorry, Joe Rogan was 2009. Where did I write notes for when Pewds started? Sorry. He has been here since his channel, I believe, started 2010. So, yeah, he and Joe Rogan kind of started around the same time. But yeah, you know, so these are people who have been long-standing contributors to the platform, where you're seeing like either they're leaving the platform outright, or YouTube is signing some exclusive deals with them to make sure that they stay. Because I believe it was 2009 that Pewdiepie signed a deal with DLive, an exclusive streaming deal with DLive, and that saw him get about 800,000 subscribers over there on a streaming platform. And that to me is pretty impressive numbers for a streaming platform. I know that people love to watch other people playing video games, and not quite my shtick, but you know, if people are talking about something different and playing the game at the same time, I can do it. But if I'm just watching you just play, I'm not here for it. But you know, it's really interesting to me that you can feel like there's a tension there, because I watch Pewdiepie rather regularly, and I hear what he said about YouTube. He's not happy necessarily with YouTube as a company, but he knows that YouTube needs him, and for now, YouTube can give him a little bit of what he needs from them. So I guess he's planning to stay for now. But I'm kind of curious to see, okay, if things go well with Joe Rogan over on Spotify, do you think that they would try and pitch and poach for Pewds? I'm curious. Would that happen? Are there other creators on YouTube that Spotify might be interested in poaching? Now that YouTube is no longer doing the whole broadcast yourself as their main focus, what else are they going to do? I'm curious though, I am, because I'm noticing that there's been a shift on YouTube, as I think I've said a few times in this video. The broadcast yourself logo is no longer visible on YouTube. YouTube is pushing for more family-friendly content. So even people who aren't doing vulgar content but are doing content that's not necessarily family friendly, like news on horrific situations, they're getting the impact of this as well. I'm noticing that there's a huge amount of celebrities coming onto YouTube, and back in the day they weren't checking for YouTube like that, but now all of a sudden they're here, and it's like, I remember when I was on YouTube, I was getting everybody. I was like, Will Smith has a YouTube channel, Tamarah has a YouTube channel, Sky Jackson has a YouTube channel. I know, I'm not sure if I heard specifically, but I know I saw her face on something. And this person has a YouTube channel, this person has a YouTube channel, Naomi has a YouTube channel. I'm like, Naomi? Why does Naomi have a YouTube channel? You know, you think of celebrities and talk show hosts as being like up here, and you think of YouTube as just the regular folk. And now I feel like YouTube is not interested necessarily in being the people's platform anymore. I think they want to elevate themselves, elevate their standing and their style, and in a way to attract back advertiser dollars as well as celebrities into the space. And I don't know if I love that. I gotta be honest, I don't know if I love that, because YouTube started as a platform for the people. YouTube started as a place to broadcast yourself, to share content, to share ideas, and now we're slowly seeing a push towards more polished, commercialized content. And to me, it almost feels like a broken promise. I know that YouTube doesn't owe us anything, and I know that technically YouTube doesn't owe us anything, and that they can do whatever they want with their company, but at the end of the day, it was people's content on their company that made them so valuable. So it's something that I'm thinking about a lot as a social media manager, and as a content consumer, and as a now content creator. These are things that constantly come to mind, and I hope they come to your mind too. You know, I keep thinking, like, this is rented space. The day named day that they come knocking at your door and say, we don't want you here anymore, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna lose all your income? And that's why you see, like, a lot of people have been kind of talking about YouTubers and how, oh, they're selling merch now, oh, they're asking for Patreon donations now, oh, they're starting their own business here, there, and everywhere. The reality is they have to. They have to, because the YouTube money that they were used to in the past is no longer as consistent, whether that's due to the adpocalypses we've had on the platform, or whether that's due to the changes in the YouTube policy in terms of paying people on YouTube. Like, I don't know. Like, there's so much to think about, and sometimes I feel envious of the people who got to start YouTube early, like Pewdiepie. Like, you go through and you see so many people who were there from the beginning, and they do so much and get away with so much. Like, the Washington Post even reported last year in August, they were saying that YouTube allows their more popular creators to have more flexibility with the platform's rules and moderation policies. And I know YouTube denies this, but I don't believe it. Why is it always the same dozen white kids on the YouTube Explore page? You're going to tell me that everybody on YouTube watches those same 12 people? Really now? And, like, you always get certain people's channels promoted to you, certain people's content pushed to you, and it's like, I don't want to watch this person, I want to watch X person, but I guess, you know, they're golden people. They have their little golden boy list. Like, I even remember back in the day when Logan Paul and Jake Paul would be in every single mess under the sun, and they wouldn't lose their YouTube Red certification or whatever. They would lose some things, but they wouldn't lose it all, you know. And I mean, I wonder how does one get it that good with YouTube that no matter how many controversies you create in the real world, YouTube's still willing to work with you and pay you and give you a chance. whereas other organizations, not necessarily. And to be honest, that's only a select few, because you remember, though, that there have been other creators, other than their golden few, that have been working and grinding on this platform and giving their blood, sweat, and tears from the jump, and they still haven't made inroads like a Joe Rogan or like a Pewdiepie. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have many thoughts right now. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Joe Rogan's show. I'm curious to see whether or not he's going to be able to pull the same audience and the same audience numbers with Spotify, or if he's going to have people not follow and not watch and not consume, and what is that going to mean for him and his exclusive deal. I also want to know what's going to happen with Pewdiepie. Yes, Pewdiepie and YouTube have, I feel like they're at a stalemate right now, where like YouTube would love, I think YouTube would love nothing more than to kick him off the platform, but he makes them a lot of money. So it's kind of a catch-22. His content is risque, but on the other hand, he makes YouTube some real moolah. So I don't know. I don't know what YouTube's gonna do with him, but I'm curious to find out. And I'm curious to see what Pewdiepie himself will do, because I really thought YouTube was kind of coming to the end of the road for him. I really thought he was getting frustrated enough with YouTube that he would go somewhere else. And to be honest with you, if Pewdiepie was smart, he would go, if I was Pewdiepie, I would study everything that YouTube has in the back end, because he probably has the best amount of access than anyone. I would study every single little detail, little thing that they have going on back there, and I would take the time, take notes, learn everything I could, and just build my own platform. You don't think Pewdiepie could start up a PewTube and have everybody hop on there? Could you imagine? It would be insane. It would be literally insane if he started PewTube and just decided to just take everybody off the YouTube platform and they all hop on his payment structure and his plan. Like, it would be crazy. Like, I really think you could do something like that, but I don't think